How to do real estate part-time. So welcome back. I'm Ted Thomas, and I've been in the real estate business on a part-time and a full-time basis over the past 30 years. I'm going to show you a business that you can do part-time and make full-time money. So I'm going to show you a real deal on this episode so that you learn how to do real estate part-time. And as you learn this, you'll learn a lot about how to make money. So to start with, I'm giving you an example from my files from the state of Georgia. Now, after my training, this particular individual has purchased over 100 bargain properties at tax defaulted auctions. Now, you can do the same thing. Now, you're not going to do it all at once, but you're going to do it over time. He did that over 20 years. So this episode is going to give you a different mindset that you can emulate, and you'll be able to do as we're going to talk about in this lesson. How to do real estate part-time, but let's earn full-time money. So working part-time, the student purchased a single-family residence for 7 cents on the dollar. That property had no mortgage and no deed of trust loan. 7 cents on the dollar. Think about that. That was pretty good. Now, for the past decade, I've been specializing in a subset of traditional real estate. It's called tax liens and tax deeds. Now, these are properties that are sold at auction with starting bids and very close to the back taxes and without a mortgage. How about that? Now, of course, that sounds impossible. Well, hang in with me for a few minutes because this is the real deal, and it's been around for decades. Matter of fact, 200 years. Okay, tax defaulted auctions take place on the second Tuesday of the month in the state of Georgia. They take place in all counties. There's 169 counties in Georgia. They're all authorized to have an auction every single month. Now, usually these auctions take place on the courthouse steps or in a big room at the county building. Now, the auctions sell, they auction properties, and what they're interested in is collecting the back tax. So that's where the auction price usually starts, usually starting at the back taxes. Now, what do they sell? They're going to sell residential homes, they're going to sell small farms, they're going to sell small office buildings, but generally it's homes. So just about think when you go to the auction, you're going to see an awful lot of homes for sale. Now, this particular property was not damaged, although the weather had created a lot of vegetation, which really was overwhelming that property. In other words, it didn't look very good because the overwhelming amount of vegetation. Now, the weather created some fading on the property, and the wind had rustled up a little dirt. But other than that, the structure was okay. There was nothing wrong. Now, the rules in Georgia allow the property owner, if you buy a property there, they allow the property owner to redeem. Now, not redeem in the religious sense, redeem and come back and get their property back. And all they have to do for 1 year is come back in and pay whatever you paid plus 20%. So what I'm telling you is buy all you can in Georgia because the minimum you're going to make is 20%. You're either going to make 20% or you're going to get the property. It's going to be one or the other. I think that's a hell of a deal. All right, now in this episode, I'm discussing a question, how to do real estate part-time. This does not take a lot of work. For example, going to an auction takes a few hours. Preparing for it takes a few hours. Other than that, you're just waiting. All right, so this property, it turned out that he bought the deed at the auction. He paid 7 cents on the dollar. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home, had a swimming pool, and had a brick exterior. All right, now it had been abandoned for 1 year. And that's why this vegetation was growing. As a matter of fact, the swimming pool was full of water and it had lots of mold. Next to the house was parked a boat. It had just been left there. Inside the garage was a drivable car. So the people had abandoned the property, and who knows where they went to, but they weren't locatable. So the student investor purchased the property, but the rules in Georgia required that as soon as you buy it, you stop, you stand in place, and you give the previous owner 1 solid year to come back, pay you whatever you paid, give you an additional 20%, and they get their property back. You can send as many notices as you want, but they have 1 full year, okay? So the owner must come and redeem the property. If they do not redeem during that 365 days, well, then you're going to get a deed to the property. So they're not taking property away from people or anything like that. So redemption is allowed up to 1 year. So that's certainly plenty of time for for the owner to come forward and do something. So what happened next? Well, my student just waited. They waited, and when they finished the year, they started by selling the car, selling the boat, and started cleaning the property. So what has to happen? Well, hire landscapers to come in and clean it up and haul away all the extra vegetation. Was there other work to be done? Yes, it needed to be cleaned up. So when they opened the door, the property was fully furnished. So they started cleaning and making the property livable again, and hauled off all the extra trash. It cost a few dollars. So they spent about $5,000 bringing the property back up to normal. Now they're going to market the property and resell it. So how do you do that? You can put it on Zillow, you can put it on Trulia, you can put it on multiple listing, you can put it on eBay, you can put it on Craigslist. You're getting the idea. Plenty of places to market it. But they put signs on the road. And when they put signs on the road in front of the house, well, what happened? Well, people noticed, oh, the landscaping looked good. They cleaned up the outside, they pressure washed it and whatever. People started to notice the property. Well, sure enough, they ended up selling that property. They sold it for $47,000. Okay, that generated a huge profit, which they did in a formal Roth IRA. Now remember, they had expenses. They bought it for $3,000. They spent $5,000 for fixing it up. But basically, they ended up making very close to $40,000 on that one deal. What's really going on is they've got a part-time job, buying the property, waiting for the homeowner to come and redeem. If they don't, that's a part-time job. Go back and clean it up and then resell it. Can you do the same thing? You can do the exact same thing. And across America, there's 3,000 counties which will conduct more than 5,000 auctions, and you could continue to do this for into the future. Why? Because this business has been around for over 200 years. Now, I didn't know anything about it myself, but when I discovered it, I realized right then and there, if I could buy for 10 cents, 20 cents on the dollar, and I could sell it for any price I want, I had my profit built in before I made my first purchase. So purchasers are buying tax defaulted properties with no mortgage and no deed of trust loan because the county wipes those loans out. When I say wiped it out, they extinguish it, they cancel it, and that's by the law. The law allows them to do this. All right. Now, the training that we teach people to do this, it doesn't matter whether they're buying residential lots or whether they're buying used and abused properties or whether they're buying big colonial houses. It's always the same story. The county is auctioning off properties that they don't want. Now, why do they auction the property? Because the county has many, many bills. What bills do they have? They have to pay the county employees. They have to pay the sheriff. They have to pay the police department. They have to pay to fix the roads. You're getting the idea. The county has a lot of bills to pay, so they got to get the property sold so it comes back on the tax roll. So if they do that, they're very happy. So they discount 60%, 70%, 80%. In this case, working part-time, the individual bought a property for $7,000 and he sold it for $47,000. Okay, the treasurer does all the work of getting the property to you. In other words, you're going to buy it directly from the county. You're going to buy it from the county treasurer, and there won't be a mortgage on that property. Folks, if you can buy for 10 cents on the dollar and they'll sell for anything you want, you've got a business that's going to last for a long time. Now, my name is Ted Thomas, and on this video, I've tried to show you the basics of being in business part-time, and right below me, there's going to be a couple of things that you're going to find before I go there, but below me, there'll be a free gift. Now, here's a couple of cautions. Don't buy a property or any property unless you've looked at it. In other words, boots on the ground. Why? What if there was a fire? It could have burned down. What if there was a windstorm? It could be damaged. What if there was a flood? I mean, you're getting the idea. What if it was next to a chicken farm? I don't think you'd want that in August, that's for sure. Another thing that you need to be cautious of is you need to know what your selling price is. See, you know what the buying price is because it's going to be the back taxes starting. So you need to know what your exit strategy is going to be. So don't buy unless you have an exit strategy. Okay, I've run out of time, but right below me is a free gift for you. Right below me is a free gift. I'll see you on the next video.